Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, The Buck, the owner and the operator of NotInHallOfFame.com and its sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Today we're going to bring the Starship fame out to the black hole, and if you're a Raiders fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All of you have probably watched a Raiders game a time or two, and if you've seen one in Oakland, then you know what the black hole is, or at least you know some of the fans that you've seen there. And if you've seen those fans, you've probably seen some of them a lot more than the actual players. Today we're going to talk to one of those members of the black hole, actually probably the key member of the black hole, the Violator, Wayne Mabry. You've seen him, with the big shoulder pads, and the crazy face paint. Looks like a character out of Mad Max, and he's going to tell us the story of how he came up with that. But he's going to tell us a lot more about what it means to be part of the black hole, what it means to be part of Raider Nation, and also how it kind of hurts the Raiders are going to Las Vegas. Without further ado, let's talk to Wayne, and he's a really great guy, and I hope you enjoy this interview. I have the pleasure of talking with the legendary Violator, someone who I think that people have seen on their TV probably more than a lot of the players that they're actually paid to watch or just really enjoy. How are you, sir?
Doing fine, Kurt. How about yourself?
Doing good. Obviously, we're both sort of, I guess, in lockdown, just in different parts of the world. I'm assuming you're in Northern California?
I'm in Southern California.
Oh, Southern California.
Yes.
So you're not living in the Oakland area?
Never did.
Oh,
that was
wow.
always a 6.5-hour trek.
Oh, my God.
For every game.
Yes. I did not know that. So you're part of the legendary Black Hole group of fans. Can you tell me how that sort of came to be and when your fandom sort of began?
Let's start with my fandom and kind of go in that order, Kurt. I've been a fan since 1970, and that became a hot dream in my spirit, so to speak, to move to California so that I could be closer to the team that I was admiring from afar, which was in Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
So it took me, I graduated in 1974, so it took me actually 3 years of trial and error to get out here, but that finally happened. And, so I've been going to the games when the team moved to LA in the 80s and, started buying season tickets, I think, in 87. And been a season ticket holder ever since. So when they moved back to Oakland, well, obviously I had to go get therapy, wherever I had to go. And also, Oakland being Mecca in my heart, that's where I first saw him. So that place was always sacred to me anyway, and still is.
Well, I have to ask then, how does a kid growing up in Mississippi sort of feel an identification with the Raiders?
Well, let's look at it this way. Some people are born to do certain things. Now, I was a kid that was always into knights and armor. So upon seeing that shield with two swords, I was love at first sight right there.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm actually a Canadian who fell in love with the Saints, so I think I grew up I should have grew up in your area.
Yeah, well, but as destiny would have it, it's called a journey, and that shows that drive. And I do a lot of speaking to youngsters about that type of stuff. Following dreams. First of all, having dreams and not being afraid to pursue them.
Mm-hmm. So when did you first start, walk me through the origin of the Violator makeup, what was the inspiration, and were there other people doing it at the time? Because I believe you're one of the first to sort of really do that and sort of take fandom to the next level.
Yeah, that all started September of 91, that season. The previous season, I'd always gotten heckled from the fans in the area that I was sitting about never sitting down. And I'm thinking, we're at a football game, so what the hell else? It's the place to get all that energy out, But I'm looking at the football game as the Gladiators were back in the day. So, all the fans stood up and raised hell. So after hearing that a whole season, I said, well, I'm going to give them something that could possibly show them why I'm standing up. And so, I kind of put together a crude Mad Max looking costume, if you call it that, but was fused with football and pirates. So that's the way I came in, and the whole face paint deal was just you're getting ready to go into battle, like the Indians and all the other warriors of the past did. So everything was kind of like already in me. It was just bringing that out, and once that came out, that was it. So this would be 29 years of stomping the yard.
And so, like, correct me if I'm wrong, there's actually like two sides. There's two sides, the black hole, and what's the name in the other end zone?
You mean the north end zone in Oakland?
Yes.
That's the dark side.
The dark side, okay. And you're in the black, and you're in the black hole. Who are some of the other people who sort of looked up to you and then created costumes around that? Because there's Darth Raider, the Gorilla or G-Rilla. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, Gorilla, yes. Senor Raider is another one. You've got Skull Lady, which is one of the first females to don the war paint, and she's still going strong. We've lost a few of our warriors, over the years, and it's just like losing a family member. But like I say, we're just a band of brothers and sisters who believe in the cause, and like I say, we'll take that graveside with us.
When you're going to the game, do a lot of other fans seek you out? Because I know that I would if I were to see you in the stands.
It has become over the years, Kurt. It has become quite a draw, if you could use that terminology. People come and they, first of all, they want to get a photo that's proof that they actually talked to me or found me. That's always proof when they go back to other countries. And I've had the pleasure of meeting people from all around the world. Some I couldn't even communicate with, but they can let me know I need a picture so I can take this home. So it's been kind of a treat, and especially because I look at myself as just an ambassador for the sport, and for the team. And it's a pleasure just to do that. How else would I be able to meet all these people who probably outside of that gear wouldn't give me the time of day?
Do you have a lot of association with the Raiders themselves? Have they ever sort of like come up to you and just sort of thanked you for your support?
It's been quite a relationship over the years. It has grown to a point now that where every year, for the last 4 years, we've been taking some of our cancer kids and autistic kids to a football game who had never been to a game, along with their families. So they always lended support with that. So I always looked up to them for that as an organization, especially when we're trying to, spread this seed, as I call it, of giving back to the community that you live in, Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm looking forward to seeing right now. And I'm starting to see a little bit of that harvest with some of the younger fans and characters just getting involved community-wise. And it's no better feeling than that, brother.
Now, I run a site primarily on Halls of Fame. If I'm correct, you're in a Hall of Fame, in the Fan Hall of Fame?
Yes, I went in 2000.
Okay, so I'm not that familiar with the Fan Hall of Fame. Can you tell me more about it?
It was originally started by Visa in 1999, I think was the first year. And sort of, the fans all basically have become part of the game. Mm-hmm. And Visa saw that, and they were just saying, why not give you guys the accolades that you guys have earned? They just weren't giving them out. They considered you as you'd earned that, and just giving us some recognition, in the highest level of the sport, other than Super Bowl. So the Hall of Fame is like, that's like the tip of the iceberg there. That's every fan's dream, I would imagine. Not that nothing was like that around, but not knowing that it's there, or you can, get the kudos or whatever, for your works. It's amazing, man. It's an honor.
So when you went for that in the ceremony in 2000, where was that held?
That was in Canton.
Oh, wow.
Same. Yeah, it was in Canton. Got to ride in a float in the parade. Same year, Howie Long had gone in. And so that was just great, just being able to walk up to his car and, exchange pleasantries. He was one of the players back in the day when I first started that told me, he says he noticed that the media was always following me. He said, so keep doing what you're doing. Eventually, they're going to eat that up. And, it's where we're at right now. Enjoying the ride, man.
Mm-hmm. So obviously there's got to be a lot of mixed feelings with the Raiders this year. They're no longer Oakland Raiders, which I still can't wrap my head around. And I'm not a fan of the Raiders, as I mentioned. I'm a Saints fan. But for me, that boggles my mind. So I can't even imagine how you're feeling right now just trying to say Las Vegas Raiders.
Actually, you will only hear me say Raiders
okay.
in reference.
Fair enough. My apologies. So I guess that was some time coming. The Oakland Alameda Coliseum, it's not necessarily the greatest facility. Obviously, there was hope that it was going to potentially that the city would sort of come up with another stadium. Needless to say, that didn't happen. And we know that sports is a business, and that's one of the sad realities of that. As much as I'm sure it's going to be a nicer facility, I can't imagine that the atmosphere in Las Vegas is going to be even remotely what it was in Oakland.
And I would have to agree with you on that one. It will never be the same. We can only try to transfer some of that energy and passion into the new Death Star. They've named it already, the Death Star. But like you say, it is a business, and I've come to the realization that it is. It's going to move regardless of our feelings, and we show loyalty by continuing to attend the games. Now, me personally, because of my financial situation, being retired, I don't have that type of flexible money, so I wasn't able to obtain seats in the new stadium. But I'm always putting it out there that, miracles still happen, and I still see myself being able to attend the games in some form or fashion.
So who is your favorite player of all? I guess for you, it's so hard to sort of come up with one. There's so many great players who have donned the black and silver, but who would be a player that people would be a little bit surprised that, not necessarily maybe your favorite player, but one that you just sort of felt a special connection to that wasn't necessarily a star, a Raider?
One that wasn't necessarily a star?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a hard one, Kurt. And as far as a favorite player, I never differentiate one from the other. We're one band of brothers under that shield. So I always looked at them, whether they were publicly liked or, whether the fans, grew dear to them, or one of those guys that we couldn't wait to see him leave. They still wore the silver and black, so I just put them all under that in that one category, man. It's just a band of dogs. I can't separate one from the other. Okay. Because you're only as strong as that weakest link,
No, fair enough. Love that answer. One thing that, in full disclosure, I've sometimes been hard personally on Raiders fans when it comes to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I feel that sometimes they're pushing the wrong horse. One person who I think has sort of been overlooked by Canton specifically that doesn't get a lot of press from Raiders blogs or Raiders fans, for me personally, is Steve Wisniewski. Why do you think that is?
Wow. And you just picked a good one. That you talk about a warlord. That was Wisniewski. Just admired his tenacity on the field. And guys like him and Lincoln Kennedy, once they left, the O-line was never as nasty, to use that phrase. That's one I love, especially with football. Mm-hmm. You got to be a little bit nasty. And he was one of those that I thought, even when he played, didn't get the recognition that he had earned in my sight. Now, as far as Raiders in the Hall of Fame, well, we all kind of know the history of that and how it's, it's almost like, well, there's too many of them in here already. But if those awards are supposed to be passed on by your deeds on the field, then there's a few that have definitely been snubbed, and I like to mention Coach Tom Flores is my number one.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah,
that has been snubbed, and it's sad that they wait till they pass on to another life and then try to shine that light on them. Give them their flowers while they still live. It's one of my mottos.
Yeah, I'm going to have to totally agree with you on Tom Flores for that. In other shows that I've done, I've been very, very critical about how I feel, and perhaps you feel the same way, with the 100th anniversary, the centennial slate class, where it felt like, and this is no disrespect to Jimmy Johnson and Bill Cowher, but if Tom Flores was a TV announcer, I think he'd be in this year, because it sure made for great television when David Baker was knocking on those doors when Cowher's on the pregame, same with Jimmy Johnson. But Flores and Don Coryell, who I'm sure you're also very familiar with, seeing him on the sidelines, it felt like
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, so both of them had been finalists before, so how they sort of got leapfrogged by two very deserving men, but it wasn't their time. In terms of like Raider fandom, I sometimes see a lot of people will push for Plunkett, and no disrespect to Jim Plunkett, he was that generation's Eli Manning, and I don't see Eli Manning as a Hall of Famer either. And I'd like your thoughts on Jim Plunkett.
Yeah, well, as far as in Coach Flores's and actually Don Coryell's, that centennial year would have been the perfect time to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Coach Flores as what he accomplished, as a quarterback and then as a coach.
Right.
I had the joy of watching him coach that team, and you talk about a soft-spoken guy, but when you talk to him face to face, you see the fire that's inside of him. And I'm sure the players fed off of that. Mm-hmm. He was like one of those silent assassins, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And like I say, smart as a fox. And I watched him just bring these guys together. And we always had misfit type of players, but that's perfect for that team. And he made these guys, molded these guys into pretty much a wrecking ball machine, man. And it was just beautiful watching the games back in those days. And for him to get passed over constantly like that, it's. But you can't really ring that bell enough in that respect. But at the same time, there's a committee there of guys who have to live with themselves, knowing that these are the ones that make the decision. So that's the way the machine is set up, and I see that continuing from now on, really.
Mm-hmm. So another Raider that I think is sort of being looked over, in my opinion, so we mentioned Steve Wisniewski, and you mentioned Coach Flores, who definitely should have been in this past year, and it was, I think, criminal that he's not. Hopefully he will get his due next year, and that he's still alive to enjoy it. I believe he's 88 now?
Yes.
Okay. One person who I'm very passionate about, especially lately since I've been watching. Since there's no sports on, I've been going back through the playoffs. I've just finished the 1980 playoffs.
Wow.
And Lester Hayes just springs to mind.
There's another one. Well-deserved, long overdue. And like I say, I'm talking about impact players, sir, who really changed the way that the game was played, so to speak. These were trendsetters before trendy was even a word.
Very well said. Yes. Why do you think Lester Hayes gets passed over? Do you think they just keep looking at the stickum?
And just his tenacity on the field. Mm-hmm. Just he wasn't what do you call it? He didn't kiss butt. He just said it how he thought it, kind of like a Jack Tatum would do. He just called it just like it is, and, you deal with it like it is. And then also, he wasn't very well spoken. He worked on a speech impediment that he had. But like I say, it's what they do on the field. It's why they usually end up in the Hall. now it's basically turned into a popularity contest in my eyesight.
In some aspects, I think that can definitely be the case, especially what we saw in terms of the coaches this year. I would have to agree in that aspect. I know that one thing that I was also very critical of, I don't know if you were watching when the NFL Network did their presentation as to who was going to get in for that Centennial class, and they dragged it out over 2 hours, which I thought was completely unnecessary to do that, especially when some of the people who, because not all of them are alive, but the ones who were watching, and I'm thinking of Drew Pearson, who was watching that from home, and then he sees Harold Carmichael come on the broadcast. Obviously, he knows at that point he's not getting in.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, there were cameras in his home or wherever he was, and he was pretty distraught about it.
Yeah,
and, I kind of felt that emotion, of him just basically being snubbed. And these are guys who made the game what it is. All of them that get in were a big part of making the game what it is. But like you said, we're looking at the game from a historical standpoint. Then there are just certain soldiers that need to, you give them their 3 or 4 stars, like the military or whatever. Because they've earned those stripes, And just to see him break down, and that was just, wasn't made for TV, but it was real. And that's true, real emotion right there. He didn't try to hide it, and I understood it when he walked away.
Yeah, it was really heartbreaking to watch. And again, like you said, it was great TV. I was certainly uncomfortable watching that, but I hated the way that all played out. And it really bothered me too, because a lot of the Halls of Fames aren't that transparent. The Pro Football Hall of Fame, for the most part, compared to other halls, does a pretty good job in comparison to some of the others. But that was one presentation where I thought that they let the medium of television overtake the reality of what it's supposed to be.
And you just said that, Kirk. This is the new modern day reality TV, and that's pretty much what I see it turn into. And if I can, I should have asked this before. I want to go backwards and then back to sort of the tip. Can you walk us through a home Sunday when you would go to one of the games? So or even the weekend, because if you're living in Southern California, you're, I guess, coming up the night before? The night before, yeah. Well, when I first started, I would just go up the morning of. So walking you back that far, my routine would begin at midnight, when I would get up and go through my 2-hour process of, getting ready and then, loading up my vehicle. And my wife and I would do that 6.5-hour drive, at 2:30, 3 in the morning. And, we would get there and just fall in line, to wait for the gates to open and go in. And then we have our typical, I would tailgate for maybe 3 hours of the morning. I have my ritual where around 11 o'clock, when they first start letting us in the stadium, I would always go in because I like to watch the whole day develop. That's like watching a motion picture to me. And it never gets old because it's always different. And the whole part, driving up in that costume for, 20 plus years kind of took a toll on the body. And so we started, like you say, making a whole weekend. So we would go up Saturday. And so we would leave our house at 6. So we would get in Oakland maybe, 12:30, 1 o'clock, meet up with a couple of friends, have some lunch, whatever, get checked into our hotel and, kind of make dinner plans for that night or, go into town and visit some other people or Jack London Square, which was where most of the stuff was jumping off, and just kind of relax before that Sunday, because Sunday was like a day of war. So your whole demeanor is different. And so it's like the quiet before the storm, so to speak. So basically that's the routine right there, Like I said, this is just a ritual of doing it, and you meet different people every time. So it's, like I say, 24 plus years up in Oakland, and it's never been a dull moment out of it.
Was there any superstitions that you had, like certain food that to eat, certain beer, certain time frame?
Not very superstitious at all. I just hate when my routine, so to speak, or my rituals are interrupted. Now that's not superstitious. That's just a certain way that I do things, and
Right.
It's almost like clockwork. But no superstitions at all.
Okay. So you've shown so much great respect for like the Raiders in general. As a diehard Raiders fan, there comes certain, I guess, teams that you are conditioned to dislike. Trying to take yourself out of that bubble, is there a certain player who you'd always go up against that you have just some mad respect for and just wished you didn't have to see him twice a week or twice a year because they were just that good? Like, what was your favorite opposing player that you had the most respect for, although not being Raider?
Not necessarily in our division. When Ray Lewis was there, you know, it was an honor to watch him perform. You know, being a former linebacker myself, that's my favorite position to watch. Anything on the defensive side, but watching how he and Junior Seau was another one. He's in our division, so we saw him twice a year, and I also watched him his whole college career at USC. So I was just hoping we would nab him in the draft, but for some reason, back in those days, we would always pass up the 6 or 7 linebackers that I had on my little draft sheet.
Right.
But watching him play, and then I got to do a NFL Network commercial with Junior Seau before he passed, and he and I got to talk just as men, you know, because he knew me as the average, that fan in the stands, you know, but he respected what I did. So meeting him and watching, you know, hearing how nice, down to earth of a guy that he was, you know, it changed my whole view of all the players that, you know, I'm looking at sort of with an evil eye, you know, because they were adversaries. And but you just look at them as men who have families just like myself. They're doing a profession like I would have loved to have been doing, but it's a special place, man, that gridiron. But those two especially, you know, linebackers that I just admired and always wish that we could have had them wearing that silver and black.
So when people sort of look at the whole crew of the black hole and just other big groups of fans like yourself, there's a certain level of fandom, but is there some kind of like etiquette that you try to keep within that community?
Very much so. I'm glad you brought that up. Even though it's never been really spoken publicly, but we do have we've rolled by a set of etiquette that's very much unspoken but understood by all. And it's just like the code of the street, so to speak. Mm-hmm. We have a code, and because we all take pride in what we do. And like I said, I personally just call myself an ambassador for the sport. So any ambassador that you see is sort of a liaison, you know, between adversaries, or, you know, because without those opposing fans coming to our stadiums, we haven't practiced. And like I said, it's a joy to get to meet them because they've already come there with preconceived notions about you. But then upon meeting you and sometimes breaking bread and fellowshipping, they leave with a whole different, you know, look of you. And that's the beauty. That's the seed that I've been trying to plant, you know, say for 29 years now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So needless to say, like whenever you're dealing with an opposing fan, you're always, you know, very, very courteous, and you want to make sure that all your peers are doing the same thing.
Absolutely, very respectful. You know, appreciating them. First of all, just coming. That makes the day, really, if you want to really look at it. When you see them partying with us, and the media has really gotten wise to that because they've been coming to our tailgates, the Black Hole tailgates, filming for so many years, they actually took note of that. That fans from the other teams are looking forward to coming to our hangout and just having a good time. And that's what the game is all about. The
Nice.
war is on the field.
Nice. No, I love hearing that. You mentioned college. Is there a college team that you're passionate about?
There's a few. I went to Jackson State, When Walter Payton and Jackie Slater were there. So I knew them personally, and Robert Brazile. So I knew those guys personally.
Dr. Doom, that's awesome.
That's always going to be a special place. But then I used to always watch USC in the Rose Bowl back in the day. And I fell in love with them from afar. So that's been my favorite college team. And maybe Florida State.
Do you ever make it out to some of the college games?
You know what? I've been to a UCLA game, but never a USC game.
Okay.
So that's kind of like still on my wish list. I don't. You notice I don't say bucket list. I don't believe in that. I just say my wish list.
Nice. Will we be able to see you at least at a couple of Vegas games, you think?
I'm hoping you'll see me at all of them, like I just told you. I'm a big man of faith, and I'm just going to lean on that and the years and what I've brought to the whole industry, so to speak. So I'm just saying that if it's the 13th hour, somebody's going to come through, and you'll hopefully see me at every game.
That would be awesome, and it would really be the perfect thing to see Raider Nation continue. What are your hopes of the fandom in Las Vegas? Myself personally, when they got a hockey team, I was very skeptical, and I guess that's me putting on my Canadian lens. I had the pleasure of going to a couple games in Vegas with my wife, and I was blown away by the fandom of the people of Las Vegas in terms of hockey. I did not see that coming at all.
Yes, you don't really look at them as a quote-unquote sports town or sports city, but to my amazement also, the fans that I've met since, making several trips to Vegas, they fell in love with the hockey because it was something of their own. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that same attitude will, be lent towards the Raiders when they come there. We're like a transplant team, but it's so much tradition and history there.
Right.
And pretty much everybody knows and follow us even casually. So I'm just hoping that they will gravitate and just let's try to replicate as close to that Oakland flavor, I call it, as we can. There'll be some of us traveling there, of course, but it takes all of us together to make the whole thing work.
Mm-hmm. Now, Violator, you're very active on social media. Where can people follow you?
You can find me on Instagram. Mabry Wayne is my IG. Twitter at Violator57. And LinkedIn at Wayne Mabry.
All right, beautiful. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully we can do this again in the future.
You got it, Kurt. Thanks for having me on. And anytime, I'm a phone call away.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening, and come back soon. We're going to have some more content here at NotInHallOfFame.com, and we hope everyone out there is staying safe. Thanks so much.